The drums stopped. The church went quiet. The groom's hands began to shake as he held the ring. His lips trembled. His eyes grew wide, like he had just seen a ghost. Then, suddenly, he screamed, dropped the ring, and ran. He pushed chairs out of the way as he rushed to the door. People gasped. Some shouted, "Blood of Jesus!" Mothers grabbed their children. Men ran towards the door. The whole church scattered. And there was Ozioma, still standing at the altar in her white gown. Her veil slipped and tears rolled down her face. Once again, she was left all alone. But why did he run? Why did every man run away on Ozyoma's wedding day? What terrible secret followed her everywhere she went? Sit back and relax as we delve into this emotional African folk tale. Ozioma was beautiful. Too beautiful, some said. Her skin glowed like the morning sun after rain. Her smile could melt a hardened heart. Men followed her with their eyes wherever she passed. To strangers, she was blessed. To her stepmother and stepsisters, she was cursed. You see, Ozyoma's life changed after her father died. Her father had been a good man, a man who loved her more than anything. But death came too early, and his burial had not even ended before her troubles began. Her stepmother, Mama Ifeoma, took over the house. She turned Ozioma into a servant. She washed the clothes, she fetched the water, she cooked the food, yet she was given the smallest portion to eat. And her stepsisters mocked her every day. But still, Ozioma smiled. Still, she prayed. Still, she hoped that one day her life would change. And when suitors began to come, she believed that God had finally answered her prayers. The first man came with a basket of gifts and a happy smile. But on the wedding day, as he looked into Ozyoma's eyes at the altar, he dropped the ring and ran. The second came, swearing he would never leave her. But on the wedding day, the same thing happened. He screamed, stumbled, and fled. By the third time, the whole village was talking. She is cursed. She carries bad luck. Her beauty is a trap. Ozioma cried and cried. She could not understand. She did nothing wrong, yet every wedding ended in shame. And that was how she came to meet Dike the blind man. But Dike was not born blind. As a matter of fact, when he was a child, people in his street used to joke that his eyes were sharper than a hawk's. "Ask Dike to find a needle in the grass," they would laugh, "and before the cock crows he will find it." His father was a great hunter, feared and respected in the whole village. He often said Dike's eyes were better than any hunting dog. "This boy can see what others cannot," he boasted, and truly, it was so. By the time he turned 15, Dike could spot a deer hiding in thick bushes from far away. He could tell which fruits were ripe just by the way sunlight touched their skin. Some even whispered that his eyes were not ordinary, but a gift from the gods. But you see, hunger is a dangerous thing. One Harmattan season, food was scarce in the land. The rivers dried up, the farms withered, and even the hunters returned empty-handed. One evening, Dike wandered near the shrine, his stomach rumbling like thunder. And there, on a carved wooden plate, he saw it. Steaming yam porridge, covered in palm oil and garnished with vegetables. It was food meant for the gods, an offering to the spirits of the land. Every child was warned never to touch it, no matter how hungry they were. But Dike's hunger blinded his sense. He looked left. He looked right. The shrine was silent, and no priest was in sight. His belly growled, his hands shook. Before he knew it, Dike grabbed the plate and devoured the food, every last morsel. At first, nothing happened. He licked his fingers, sighed in relief, and laughed to himself. But just as he stood up to leave, a cold wind blew. The trees bent. A strange whisper filled the air. Then, darkness. Dike fell to the ground screaming. His eyes burned like fire. He rubbed them. He cried, but it was too late. The gods had struck him blind. From that day, Dike lived in darkness. The boy whose eyes once saw farther than any hunter now groped in the dust like a beggar. People shook their heads whenever they saw him. Some said it was punishment. Others said it was fate. But only Dike knew the truth. His long throat had brought the curse on him. And yet, hidden in the curse was a secret. The chief priest later revealed that only the kiss of true love could break the blindness. But until then, Dike's eyes would remain shut forever. He was sitting under his favorite tree when suddenly he heard voices. First one, then two, then many more. Footsteps pounded the ground, slippers slapping the earth, sandals scraping, children crying, women shouting. In seconds, the whole place was in chaos. Dike turned his head, his blind eyes hidden behind dark glasses. "What is happening here?" he asked, his voice calm but curious. A man standing nearby hissed through his teeth. "Ah, you don't know? It is the cursed bride again. Today was her wedding. The groom saw something strange, only God knows what, and he ran. Everybody is running now. They say no man can ever marry her." Dike leaned on his walking stick and listened carefully. The crowd's noise began to fade, but then he felt it. A soft presence, trembling, broken. A weight of sorrow heavy enough to bend the air itself. She came slowly, dragging her feet, her veil half torn, her sobs shaking her chest. She collapsed under the same tree, only a few feet from him. He could not see her face, but he could hear everything, her tears falling like rain, her breath breaking in pieces, her heart shattering in silence. "Why do you cry like the world has ended?" Dike asked gently. Startled, Ozioma lifted her head. She had not noticed the blind man before. For a moment she thought he would mock her like the others, call her the cursed bride. But instead, his voice was warm, like the sound of a drum played softly at night. "My name is Ozioma," she whispered, her throat tight, "and my life has no meaning anymore." That was the beginning. Two strangers under a tree, one cursed with blindness, the other cursed with heartbreak. Neither of them knew that the gods were watching, and that destiny had just tied their stories together. Dike was not the type to give up. From the very moment Ozyoma's voice reached his ears under that tree, something inside his chest refused to rest. He could not see her face, but her laughter, her sighs, even the way her words trembled when she spoke. All of it lit a fire in his heart. Every day he found a way to call her name when she passed by. Every evening he waited under his favorite tree just to hear her footsteps. "Ozioma," he would say, smiling, "do you know your voice makes the world brighter than the sun?" "Another day," he whispered, "even if I cannot see the stars, I am content, because I hear them in your words." Ozioma did not know how to behave. She had lived a life where men always disappeared. At first, they would come boldly, promising heaven and earth, but when the wedding day arrived, they would vanish like smoke in Harmattan wind. But Dike was different. He kept coming back. He kept calling her name as if it was the sweetest song he ever knew. He kept smiling at her as though she was the only treasure left in the world. Finally, one quiet evening, as the sun melted into the horizon and the village boys were driving goats home, Ozioma whispered shyly, "Okay, Dike, tomorrow I will sit with you under this tree, just the two of us." Dike almost leapt to his feet with joy. If his eyes still worked, they would have shone like fire. He held his stick, tapped the ground, and laughed so loudly the birds scattered from the branches. The next day, just as Ozioma promised, she came to sit under the tree with Dike. She brought a small basket of roasted yam and palm oil. When they sat down together, a woman passing by stopped in her tracks. She whispered to her friend, "That is the cursed bride." The friend gasped, pulled her wrapper tighter, and quickly crossed to the other side of the road. Two boys who were chasing a tire froze when they saw her. They abandoned the game and ran off shouting. Ozyoma's heart sank. She knew this story too well. But Dike, he noticed none of it. His blind eyes did not see the way people scattered. His ears only heard her laughter. His heart only felt her nearness. She pushed the roasted yam towards him. "Eat," she whispered. Dike broke a piece, dipped it in the oil, and ate with joy, as if he had been served the feast of a king. "Ah, Ozioma," he said with a grin. "This is the sweetest yam I have ever eaten in my life. Truly, anything from your hands must taste like honey." Her cheeks warmed. She lowered her face, twisting her fingers nervously around the edge of the basket. How could he speak so kindly? Didn't he hear the whispers? Didn't he feel how the whole village avoided her? But Dike kept talking, kept smiling. When the yam finished, he clapped his hands like a child. "Tomorrow, let us go to the market together. I want to hear which beads shine brightest for you. Even if I cannot see them, I know your laughter will tell me." Ozioma wanted to refuse. She knew what would happen. The women at the bead stand would shrink away, the market boys would mock her, and the whispers would grow louder. But Dike's face was glowing like firewood under flame. She could not say no. So the next day, they went. The market was buzzing with life, traders shouting, goats bleating, pestles pounding yam in the distance. But the moment Ozioma walked beside Dike, the air shifted. A woman selling tomatoes covered her mouth and hissed. Two young men who had been admiring beads suddenly dropped them and left. One bead seller, hands shaking, tried to pack her goods quickly, muttering prayers under her breath. Ozyoma's face burned with shame. Her hands trembled as she touched the strings of coral and glass. She wanted to hide, to vanish. But Dike, he noticed none of it. He held her hand gently, touched one bead, and said, "This one. I may not see it, but if it rests on your neck, I am sure it will make even the moon jealous." Her chest shook. Her eyes filled with tears. All her life, people had mocked her, avoided her, treated her as if she carried a plague. But here was one man, blind yet truly seeing her, calling her a treasure. That night, Ozioma went home with a smile so wide it hurt her cheeks. For the first time in her life, she allowed herself to dream of love. And under his tree, Dike leaned on his walking stick and whispered to himself, "She is the one. She is the reason I still live. Even if the gods never return my sight, my eyes have already found her." Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Ozioma and Dike became inseparable. Every evening the villagers would see them together, her laughter bubbling like a stream, his walking stick tapping steadily beside her. Some mocked, some whispered, but others began to wonder, could it be that the cursed bride had finally found someone who was not afraid? One clear night, as the crickets sang and fireflies painted the air with light, Dike held Ozyoma's hand under the tree where their story had begun. His fingers trembled, but his voice was steady. "Ozioma," he whispered, "the world is dark to me. Yet in your voice, I see light. In your laughter, I see colors brighter than the rainbow. If the gods are kind, they will grant me one thing before I die, to be your husband." Her heart skipped. Tears filled her eyes. For so long she had been abandoned, shamed, and mocked. Yet here was a man who wanted only her. Not her beauty, not her body, just her. She nodded, her voice breaking. "Yes, Dike, I will be your wife," and then, under the moonlight, they shared their first kiss. At that very moment, something strange happened. Dike's eyes, long dead and lifeless, began to tingle. His lids fluttered. A faint glow spread across his face. He staggered back, gasping, "Ozioma, I can see! I can see!" For the first time in years, the darkness lifted. The stars above blazed in his vision. The outline of her face shimmered like dawn breaking after a storm. The gods had kept their word. True love's kiss had broken the curse. But Ozioma was trembling. She pulled away, her face pale. "No, this cannot be. Dike, don't you see? Now that your eyes are open, you will see what every man before you has seen. You will run. You will leave me too." Dike shook his head fiercely. "Never. I will not run from you. Even if the whole world calls you cursed, I will hold your hand until my last breath." Her tears fell like rain. For the first time in her life, she believed. One morning, with a keg of palm wine in one hand and a basket of cola nuts in the other, he made his way to Ozioma's house. Mama Ifeoma sat outside, her thick arms folded, chewing bitter cola as her two daughters plaited each other's hair. The moment Dike greeted, she burst out laughing. "Ha!" She clapped her hands mockingly. "Blind Bartimaeus, I heard you have received your sight. So you too want to marry my stepdaughter? You want to join the long list of fools who ran away from her? You will run faster than all of them, I swear." Her daughters cackled, rolling on the mat. But Dike stood tall, his chin lifted, his voice steady. "Mama Ifeoma, laugh if you wish. But Ozioma is not a curse. She is a blessing. I came to ask for her hand in marriage, and nothing you say will change my mind." For the first time, Ozioma felt pride swell in her chest. No man had ever defended her so openly. She smiled through her tears, even as her stepmother hissed and spat on the ground. "Go and try," Mama Ifeoma sneered. "You too will run." The wedding day came quickly. The whole village gathered, curious to see if this would end like the others. At the altar, Dike stood tall, his eyes shining with sight restored, his heart beating only for Ozioma. The miracle of his sight was already the talk of the town. "Maybe the curse is broken," some whispered hopefully. "Maybe love has finally won." Ozioma entered the church slowly, her white gown glowing under the morning sun that poured through the windows. The choir sang softly, their voices trembling with the weight of the moment. Every step she took seemed to silence the crowd further. Men and women leaned forward, their eyes wide. Children clutched their mothers' wrappers. No one wanted to miss a single second. When she reached the altar, Dike took her hand. His grip was firm, steady. He looked at her, not with blind, cloudy eyes as before, but with the sharp gaze of a man who could finally see. "Ozioma," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, "you are more beautiful than anything I ever imagined." Her breath caught. For the first time, someone truly saw her, and stayed. Tears slid down her cheeks, but this time, they were tears of joy. She whispered back, "Dike, you are my miracle." The priest smiled, raising his voice. "Today, we gather in the sight of God and men to witness the union of these two hearts." The vows began. Dike spoke his with confidence, his voice strong enough to reach the back of the hall. "I, Dike, take you, Ozioma, to be my wife. I will love you, I will protect you, I will never leave you." Ozioma's turn came. Her voice trembled, but her words carried hope. "I, Ozioma, take you, Dike, to be my husband. I will stand with you through joy and sorrow, in light and in darkness." The crowd murmured. Could it be? Could this really be the end of the curse? Some smiled, some shook their heads, waiting for the disaster they believed would surely come. Then came the rings. The priest lifted them up, praying over them. "These rings are a symbol of endless love. Let them bind you together forever." Dike's hands trembled slightly as he took the ring. He looked into Ozioma's eyes, deep, brown, shining with tears. Slowly, he lifted her hand. Slowly, he began to slip the ring onto her finger. And then, his breath hitched, his eyes widened. The same eyes that had been restored by her kiss now clouded with fear. His fingers froze halfway. His whole body stiffened, as if invisible chains gripped him. The ring slipped. It clattered against the tiled floor. The sound echoed through the silent church like thunder. Gasps filled the room. The choir stopped mid-song. The drummers lowered their sticks. Even the priest's Bible trembled in his hands. "No," Ozioma whispered, her heart dropping into her stomach. Dike staggered back, his chest rising and falling violently. His face twisted with terror, though he could not explain what he saw. Then, with a sudden piercing scream, he turned, pushed past the altar boys, and ran. "Dike!" Ozioma cried, stumbling forward, her veil falling from her head. But he was already gone, out the church doors into the blazing sun, leaving her at the altar. The whole church broke into chaos. Women shouted, "Chineke!" Men muttered, "It is true, she is cursed." Children clung to their mothers, wide-eyed. The whispers returned, sharper than blades. And there was Ozioma, alone again, her hands shaking, her heart in pieces, her wedding dress stained with tears. The curse had won once more. Ozioma did not move. She stood frozen at the altar, staring at the empty doorway where Dike had vanished. The whispers of the villagers swirled around her like a cruel wind. I said it. She is cursed. No man can stay with her. Even the one whose eyes she opened could not stand her. Her knees buckled. She sank to the floor, clutching her chest as though trying to hold her heart in place before it shattered. Tears poured down her face, soaking the lace of her gown. Her stepsisters smirked from the back pew, hiding their laughter behind their wrappers. Her stepmother only shook her head and hissed loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Didn't I warn them?" This girl will only bring shame. But Ozioma heard none of it. All she heard was the sound of the ring hitting the floor, over and over, like a drum of doom.
Meanwhile, far from the church, Dike stumbled through the forest path, his wedding clothes torn by branches, his chest heaving. He fell to his knees before the old shrine, his face covered in dust and sweat.
"Why do you torment me?" The wind stirred. The old wooden doors of the shrine creaked. The carved faces of the gods seemed to twist in pity or mockery. A voice, deep and thunderous, filled the air. "The curse lies not in her blood, but in her home." Dike froze, his head lifting slowly. "What? What do you mean?" "Under her stepmother's bed," the voice boomed, "a calabash lies. In it is her picture, bound by darkness, sealed with a spell. Destroy it, and the curse will break. But beware, the price will be blood." Dike's eyes widened. He staggered to his feet, trembling. "Then I will destroy it. I will save her, even if it costs me everything." As he ran back towards the village, hope burning inside him, Ozioma sat alone in her room. Her wedding gown crumpled around her like a shroud. Her hands shook as she picked up a small piece of paper and a pen. Tears blurred her vision as she wrote. "My dearest Dike, I thought love had finally found me. I thought my curse was broken when you chose me. But today, when you ran like all the others, my heart broke beyond repair. I cannot live with this shame again. I cannot bear to watch the whole village laugh at me. Forgive me, my love, but this is goodbye. Maybe in another life, we will find each other without curses and chains. Yours forever, Ozioma." She placed the letter gently on her pillow. Then, with trembling hands, she reached under her bed and pulled out a small gourd of poison. She uncorked it, her tears falling into the dark liquid. She lifted it to her lips. Dike burst into Ozioma's compound, his chest pounding like a drum of war. His friends, who had followed him reluctantly, stopped at the gate, too afraid to enter. Inside, the stepmother and her daughters sat in the courtyard, laughing as though a wedding had not just ended in disgrace. "Ehen, our fine groom has come back," one sister sneered. "At least you ran before you fainted. The others were not so lucky." The stepmother leaned back in her chair, her voice dripping with venom. "I told you, boy. I told you that girl is cursed. You should thank your feet for saving you." But Dike did not answer them. His jaw was tight, his fists trembling. He marched straight past them, heading for Ozyoma's room. "Leave her alone!" the stepmother barked. "That girl has brought nothing but shame!" He shoved the door open, and there, on the bed, Ozioma lay still, her white gown stained at the mouth with the dark poison. "No! No, no, no!" Dike fell to his knees, gathering her limp body in his arms. "Ozioma! Get up, please, get up! Don't leave me! Don't do this to me!" His tears ran down her pale cheeks as if trying to bring her back, but her head only fell to the side, lifeless. The sisters peeked in from the doorway, suddenly quiet. Even they could not laugh at this. But the stepmother stood firm, arms folded, her lips curled in satisfaction. Dike laid Ozioma down gently and stood, his face a storm of grief and fury. "You did this!" He stormed into her room. "Don't you dare touch my things!" the stepmother shrieked. But it was too late. Dike dropped to the floor, pulled out the bed frame, and dragged out the calabash. The moment he lifted it, the air turned heavy. "No! Put it back! You don't know what you're doing!" the stepmother screamed. But Dike walked into the courtyard, the calabash raised high. His voice shook with rage. "For Ozioma! For every tear she shed! For every night she cried alone! This ends today!" He smashed it against the ground. The calabash shattered into pieces, a dark mist rising like smoke. The stepmother screamed, clutching her chest. She staggered, eyes wide, and collapsed to the floor. Blood trickled from her mouth. Within seconds, her body grew cold. Dike, breathing heavily, dropped to his knees beside Ozyoma's lifeless body again. He pressed his forehead to hers, sobbing until his voice broke. "I should have stayed. I should have fought sooner. Forgive me, my love. Forgive me." He lifted her gently into his arms, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "If you cannot live, then I will never live fully. I will carry your memory till my last breath. I swear, Ozioma, I will never marry another."
And with that, he walked out of the compound, a broken man, carrying his bride, who never saw her wedding night.
True love is not always about happy endings. Sometimes it's about sacrifice, pain, and memories that never die. If this story touched your heart, type Ozioma in the comments. Don't forget to share this story so others can feel the pain, the love, and the lesson. And subscribe for more stories that will leave you speechless.